Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this evening. Um, First, little piece of housekeeping. I'm not exactly sure where Dr. Parker is at the moment. I know that he's delayed, but hopefully he'll be able to jump on soon as we get started. We don't want to delay. Everybody's time is precious, which is actually apropos when we're talking about longevity. Um, So I'm not one to stand much on ceremony and protocol. So I just want to give you a little bit of housekeeping at the top, let you guys know how the discussion is going to run, and then I'm going to jump right into it and allow Alexis to say a couple of words and get our conversation started. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues. You've already met Travis, and I believe Oshana hasn't said hi yet, but she's a mega force behind all of these discussions. So I just want to acknowledge them. And then I want to say that this is in the broader context, this particular discussion of a number of panel discussions that we're having, which itself is connected to uh, a project that Travis is going to say a couple of words about, connected to what we call the silver economy. And that is simply the economy and the societal impacts and needs of those over the age of 60. Okay. In the region and more broadly in the world, populations are aging, which simply means that the proportion of older folks um, is getting higher in proportion to the younger ones, right? And if you look at the extremes, you're going to see Japan and Korea on one end of the spectrum. And then we have much younger nations such as Nigeria, which is still growing at seriously rapid rates. But the Bahamas is one of those aging countries now. And this is true throughout the region. Um, and so the IDB has been looking at this for a while, and uh, we're doing a project with them to look at how we can address some of the issues for that older population, but also the issues that having an aging population has on society in general. So having said that, I just want to let Travis say a couple of words about this broader project, and then we'll jump in. I see Dr. Parker has joined us already. So Trav, you want to just say a couple of words?
Will do, and I will load up my screen. Let me know if everybody could see it okay when they can. You good? Can I get a thumbs up from somebody if they could see the screen? I
I
don't know
can
if
see
they.
you great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thank you again for hopping on this call. So yes, our project, we're calling it Silver Carib. It isn't just a Bahamian project. So we are looking at issues and challenges around the silver economy within the region. But really, we're starting this project in the Bahamas, and then hopefully, where we take our learnings and findings, we could share with our brothers and sisters in the region who also will be impacted by this as well too. Just a quick overview about Arling Ventures and who we are. We are a consultancy here based in the Bahamas, and we work with Bahamian businesses and also businesses throughout the Caribbean. We provide consulting, training, and management services for those businesses, either getting their business model refined or helping them to get grants and funding. And we offer a high level strategic perspective given the different backgrounds from each of our team members, whether it might be in tech, accounting, business. We all try to blend those resources and experiences together in order to provide the people that we work with a broad sense of the different things that they need to touch on when developing businesses. Our main focus is involved around developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. But we are also interested in developing the networks and letting those individuals access capital, develop a mentorship community as well too, and just give a lot of opportunities and perspective uh, business opportunities for entrepreneurs as well too. Our core competencies include building curricula for businesses that we work with, whether that might be the Small Business Development Center, the Canoe Innovation Hub. And we just do a few training modules that we have branded within the OurLink ecosystem that helps entrepreneurs to get different tools throughout the course of their timeline. So, just to hop in a little bit about stats and challenges about the silver economy that you may or may not know. So, through research through the IDB lab, there's been determined that it's been projected that 1 in 4 people in Latin America and Caribbean are expected to be over 60 by 2020, by 2015. This is a huge increase, especially within the Caribbean region, which is expected to be a little bit more on the percentage perspective, but we have a rapidly growing population within the Bahamas in general as well too. The percentage increase of people age 65 and up has jumped over the last few years from 1980 to 2023 up to 9.3%. As you may or may not know, the average retirement age of citizens in the Bahamas is between 60 to 65, maybe a little bit earlier depending on early retirement. But our average life expectancy since the last census data has been 74.5 years of age. So with that additional amount of years that individuals have post retirement, it comes with that longer life expectancy comes with financial stress for seniors more times than not. It poses additional challenges, including the strain on the healthcare system, social security, and pensions that need to catch up in order to support these individuals. And then there's also need for more specialized healthcare services depending on individual needs for the elderly as well too. But with these challenges come opportunities for entrepreneurs or individuals that are willing to tackle the space to benefit and to profit from those challenges as well too. So it's estimated from 2015 to 2030, people over age 60 will be the source of nearly 30% of all growth and consumption in Latin America and Caribbean, which means that these individuals will need products and companies that service their needs and cater to those needs as that increases over a period of time. So there's huge opportunities for potential entrepreneurship and innovation as well too, and a lot of low-hanging fruit for serving these individuals in this demographic more as well too within our region. What OurLink Ventures is aiming to do is to create a series of tailored programming to address these issues and create a comprehensive support framework that fosters entrepreneurship for older adults while engaging various stakeholders. So this Silver Forums that we're doing today is a part of that initiative, which is based on 3 components. One, which we are in right now, is a series of educational programs and workshops that we just want to bring more attention to the space to individuals within our community where we can learn from individuals that are tackling the space on a day-to-day basis and learn a little bit more how we could tailor products and services to those needs as well too. Second part of the component is an accelerator that we plan to do. An accelerator is just a 10-week program that we would take individuals who want to either get into entrepreneurship and explore giving opportunities within that space, or you might be an existing company that might want to explore that vertical because you already serve these demographics, but just probably don't specifically target those demographics. And so we plan to do a 10-week course that we will train individuals in order to build the businesses or refine business models that tailor to these individuals. And within that, we plan to provide additional mentorship, feedback, and then access to the potential partners in our network in order to develop that space a little bit more. And then our third component is that we want to continue to develop and refine the mentorship program as well too, with a focus on tapping into our expat community that we have here as well too, primarily from a global perspective. So we have a lot of expats within the country who very well want to communicate to the country that they're in. And we see this as a huge opportunity to tap in and connect those individuals to the entrepreneurs that we are trying to cultivate through our programming in order to get a global perspective and to provide more experience that they could gain on for a regional perspective as well too. So our goal, or what we aim to achieve, is that by combining these educational workshops, the accelerator, and the mentorship, we'll create a multifaceted support system that will foster inclusion for individuals in the space and then drive ultimately economic growth within the Bahamas and the region as well too, because we have a wealth of knowledge We have a wealth of resources for the individuals who are still very active in our space, that still want to get involved and still want to contribute to the community. And we would like to embrace that and connect that and build a network properly around that as well too. So if you haven't visited our website as well yet, our project website could be found at silvercarib.com. Or if you have a phone, you could quickly scan the QR code to get there. To find out more information on the project and to stay in touch with the programming, what we plan to achieve, especially when we open up the accelerator that will happen at the, we'll open up applications for our accelerator at the end of the year, but we'll run our accelerator for the first time at the beginning of next year. And then if you want, and we encourage you to do so, we're still collecting a general landscape information and data with a quick survey to figure out what is your perspective on the silver economy, and offer suggestions on how we could continue to engage the community, to engage the space, and just use this information to inform our decisions and our future events in the future as well too. So if you want, you could also scan that QR code, but you could also find a link to this on our website as well too, and then we'll remind you at the end of the presentation as well. So far, we'd just like to thank the partners that we currently have on board for this initiative, primarily IDB Lab, who is our main champion for the initiative, and also working with other people in the region to work on this program. And then we also shout out to the Chamber of Commerce, UB North Ignite, who we're working with for workshops and collaborating with, that also tailored to individuals in the space as well too. Crypto Isle, which is our primary partner in terms of venue and space, and then Full Court Films, that'll also be our main partner for capturing a lot of the content over the next few years as we build the project, in order to capture this for individuals to continue to consume way before this project is done as well too. We're still looking for support for this initiative. It is in many different forms. As we ramp up the accelerator, if you know there's an individual who could benefit from this program, whether it might be young or a little bit older, talk to us about how it would be to fund a scholarship in order for them to be a part of the program, or a seat for any of the workshops that we plan to do. Run a workshop with us. So if you are a corporate partner as well too, you might have staff that might be on the way to retirement. We'd love to work with you in terms of putting a program to get them ready for life after retirement, or how they would want to participate in the workforce. We could run a tailored program for that as well too. And then we're still also looking for contributions as well too for the program, in order to offset just program costs that we might do. And it doesn't only have to be financial. It could definitely be in kind in a lot of different forms. We'd love to have that conversation with you in order to make this project a success as we continue to engage with this project over the next 4 years. And with that being said, thank you for your time for that. And then we'll hop into the Silver Forums. And back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Travis. That may be a lot for some people, but we think it's important to give the context of why we're doing what we're doing here. I also always like to add at the end of Travis's pitch is that it's not just about the creativity, energy, and innovation that we believe entrepreneurship can bring to solving problems in a space like this, but we're also interested in having the broader conversations of policy. So if you are in a policy-making position, or you know people who can affect policy, we'd be super happy to have those connections. So keep that in mind as well. Not just about entrepreneurship, it's about the entire landscape. With that, I would like to have our guests say a few words and then just jump into this conversation, which I'm actually quite excited about. But the way that I'm going to do it here is I'm just going to flip the script a little bit. Having all of that context, I'm going to ask first Alexis and then Dr. Parker. If no one has ever heard of you before, in terms of the context of this conversation, what would you have them know before we jump into it? Who are you? Like, why are we having this conversation from your point of view? Go ahead, Alexis.
Okay. Well, my name is Alexis, Hanna, and from the context of this conversation, I have taken care of both of my parents as a full-time caregiver for my mother for about 10 years and my father for about 3 years. Both of those parents, both of my parents passed away 2 years ago in September. And yeah, so I'm just speaking from the context of being a former full-time caregiver.
Okay. And I just like to add that you are not just in a past tense a caregiver, but you're currently an advocate, which I have great respect for.
I am a member of the Bahamas Alzheimer's Association, and apart from that, just in general, I preach the gospel of what it is that the Bahamas Alzheimer's Association intends to do in our Bahamian community.
Okay, perfect. Dr. Parker, I think you're on mute.
Obviously not a techie. I guess that's the first thing you should know about me. uh, my name is Dr. K. Neil Parker, Dr. Parker Parker. I am a rheumatologist by profession. That is, I take care of patients, among other things, patients who suffer from arthritis and other joint-related conditions. And in the context of this conversation, obviously, the aging population means that we will have arthritis as a condition. Osteoarthritis, at least in particular, is a condition that many of our senior um, members of the population struggle with. And so my perspective is I try to bring new and innovative techniques to help these patients live with and manage their condition and improve their quality of life. Um, as a physician, I don't necessarily consider myself an entrepreneur. That would be somewhat naive, but at the same time, I'm here to spread the gospel of treatment availability. And we tend to almost undertreat the elderly in that, we think people tend to, think it is their lot to suffer. The prize for living so long is to go home and take 2 Panadol and just deal with what comes your way. But like any of us, should we reach that age, we would want to still enjoy a rich quality of life and to have, painless days. And I think that's important. Being alive is one thing, being healthy is another.
Yes. And for everyone out there, obviously, I am a part of Arrowlink Ventures, which is hosting this. But the reason that I'm hosting this discussion in particular is because I have a connection to similar to Alexis in that I am a caregiver to my mother, who's progressing through Alzheimer's as well. And in the course of that, like what Dr. Parker just said really resonated with me is like, you don't want to just give up and think this is your lot. And so, 90% of my day is just researching, even if I could get that half of a percent improvement or half of a percent in slowing down of my mother's condition, like that's what I'm gonna do. So I have, for lack of a better term, skin in the game here. So I'm going to be a little more active in this conversation than just a regular host asking questions. And I would also like to point out that one of the reasons I'm particularly excited to have Dr. Parker here is because even though his patients would range from essentially kids up to the age, and the age really suffer a lot from things like osteoarthritis, is that he is an early adopter of regenerative medicine. And regenerative medicine is super relevant to the topic of longevity here today. And like he said, we don't want to just live long, we want to live healthy. So not just what is your lifespan, but what is your health span, right? with that said, let me ask a question here. I'll direct this to you first, Alexis, because you have the more intimate experience of the elderly losing their independence, right? And sometimes they're aware of that, and sometimes they're not. And I think, you know, you got challenges either way. From your perspective, what were some good strategies around preserving, well, just regular life? I mean, their sense of dignity, the mobility that they needed to have, and just being independent. Like, did you find particular things that worked better than not? And then how has that like impacted you as a caregiver?
So I will say this. My journey caring for both of my parents with dementia, it taught me that aging with dignity is more than just medical care. It's about preserving someone's personhood, about preserving their voice, their choices, their legacy. I think we often shy away from talking about aging or dying, but dignity, I think, starts with the conversation, sitting down with your loved ones before a crisis actually happens to ask, you know, what are your wishes? How do you want to be cared for? What is the legacy, you know, that you want to kind of leave behind? Um, and I think I had an advantage in that, you know, I was in my former career an insurance advisor. These are the things and the questions that we would have asked on a regular basis to my client base. And, you know, I worked along with my father, so he and I were already, you know, very locked in on those sorts of things. We would have those conversations on a regular basis. So when it comes to the ways in which that I wanted to be able to care for my parents and for their long-term care, it revolved a lot more about, you know, how we can preserve their dignity, but more so from their lens. So speaking to them beforehand to kind of figure out, you know, what are some of the things that you would want? How is it that you would want to be remembered, not in your death, but in your, you know, whenever you may arrive at a stage of some sort of mental incapacitation and there's someone else who has to be in charge of your well-being, how is it that you would like to be handled and taken care of? But outside of that, um, you know, like I said, I had an advantage in that these were things that I was privy to beforehand. Lots of people, you know, they talk about this from, you know, being more reactive and basically not necessarily having the conversations beforehand and knowing what it is that their loved ones would intend to do and how they would intend to live out the rest of their life and what dignity means and looks like to them, basically. So the thing that I would say is try to have those conversations earlier. If you haven't had them, it's never too late to start. Even if you're dealing with someone with some sort of diminished mental capacity, you can still kind of have those conversations and see exactly where it is that you can go from there to help them out in their older years.
Yeah. Dr. Parker, I imagine that dealing professionally, you would have a little bit of a different perspective. Although, I mean, obviously, compassion is a huge part of medical care. But how do you see it?
Well, when through the lens of I guess the purview of why I'm here to a certain extent, as a physician, we are always taught to consider the patient as a whole. And what one of the questions I ask to patients is, firstly, what's bothering you the most? And before we try to tailor a treatment plan, I ask them, what would you like me to help you with? What would you like to do? What would you like to achieve? It's not necessarily about 100% treating the pain in my knee, but What do you want? Do you want to get back to your 2 mile walk? Do you want to return to jogging? Do you want to be able to get up and down stairs? Do you want to be able to play with your grandchildren? And then we can talk about what their patient's expectation is. And then also I try to help patients to tailor their expectations to what I think is reasonable and realistic before we start, so that everybody is on the same page. And so, yes, the concept of personhood, autonomy, independence, and as you said, skin in the game is very important. You can, if you don't engage the patient correctly, you could be on your way in your own head along a treatment path and thinking you're making progress, and the patient is not right along there with you. And so it's very important that everybody is on the same page. And so you can, and that helps it helps when things are going well, because you may be wanting to continue the patient treatment, and you may say, all right, we got 75% pain relief, let's go for 100. Patient may say, no, doc, be good. Or it may go the other way, where you are thinking, you got 75% pain relief, that's a reasonable expectation. The patient say, no, doc, I want to be pain free. So it really comes down to walking step by step with the patient and figuring out exactly what their preferences are, their do's, their don'ts, and what they're open to. Because what they're open to also allows you more options and them more options. Some patients are very adventurous. They want to try everything. And some patients will walk in and say, no needle, no knife, and then let's go. So it really comes down to, you really have to get down to the patients. You want to have a good communication so that you can even help the patient to explore their own horizons. There may be options available to the patient that they have prejudices against, which may not really be valid. And once you explain things to the patient properly, they may then be open to things that they weren't open to before.
Yeah. And I would add to this that it was interesting to me that you said your doctors are taught to consider the patient as a whole. And I think that some lose track of that, right? And I feel that part of maintaining dignity, especially for someone who's less capable of advocating for themselves, is being that advocate, right? I know that my dad is mentally sound, but he let his cataracts go way too far, right? And he's the type of person, I'm not saying anything. So by the time we were really understanding how bad it was, he couldn't see across the street. And yet he's trying to navigate the bus system in Nassau. It's like so you have to be on your parents like white on rice sometimes, right? But in my mom's case, I have to be an advocate more on her behalf because she's not as much of who she was that in the past, right? And so I'm gonna be very careful. I'm not trying to blame anybody, but there was one doctor that she has a history with, and she was doing a follow-up visit years after surgery, and I asked, hey, does she have to take an antibiotic every time she goes to the dentist? Because that's part of the protocol after surgery, right? And we talking like almost 10 years, right? And he's like, oh no, that's 3 years. But I tell him to stay on it because it don't harm anything. But it does harm your your microbiome, and your microbiome is so important, right? And so he doesn't mean any harm by it. But if I'm not there asking that question, she's going to be impacted by that. So you have to, I think, as a caregiver, or even a potential caregiver, because the frailties of aging could come at any time. We went through the pandemic. There could be an accident. I fell off the roof. a few days ago, it could have, like, I walked away without a scratch, but it could have been terrible, right? So, um, having someone who you can rely on, or being the person who can be relied on, I think is a huge part of being able to maintain people's dignity and aging with grace. All right, from there, I'd like to jump into,
Matthew,
hey, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of add to that. You made a fine point too, and I just wanted to say, in the truth of the matter is, yes, we are taught theoretically to view the patient as a whole, and the pressure in medicine now with volume and time can lead to a very minimalistic or overly focused approach, which can in some cases be detrimental to the patient or to the patient care physician relationship. What I would advocate is, like you made a fine point about the antibiotics and the microbiome. And what I would say is that as a physician, and you should look for in your provider, that the providers should be open, because with the explosion of and really the democratization of knowledge today, you know, the relation, what we call the patient physician relationship, the technical term for it in medicine is a therapeutic alliance. And so the reality of it is, it was always designed to be a relationship and an alliance between the healthcare provider and the person or persons, because many times it is not just the patient, it's the families on the other end of that. So it really is meant to be a relationship with give and take. And patients teach as much as doctors. And so you have to be open and accept that these people, the people in general, can know as much about a certain thing or even more than you.
Yeah. um, and as someone on the other side, you also have to navigate, and you have to remain respectful and be perceived as someone who's seeking that partnership, right? So even if you know a lot and you need this alliance with a physician, I don't advocate that you go in there and be like, what are you talking about? You've been destroying my mother's microbiome for 7 years, and yada yada. Like that's not going to be good either. So yeah, as a caregiver, just just be cognizant that you're on the other side of that equation as well. So have expectations and advocate, but also, you know, even though you're under so much pressures, uh, uh, try to be the person who's fostering a positive relationship. I would say it's not always easy because I'm a person who does learn a lot, and in some instances I do know more than the other than the physician in some cases, right? Or I know more about a different side of things. Who obviously a specialist would be way more knowledgeable than me, but this person is not that specialist. They're over here, and I'm looking at the whole. um,
So
sorry, say again.
something to add to that particular point. Like you said, I remember instances with both of my parents in the hospital, and they're telling me, especially with my father, on the last times that he was in hospital, the physicians telling me, oh, he was so, he was so riled up and he was so aggressive and so combative and whatnot. And I'm explaining to them, yes, he has Alzheimer's, dementia. You've taken him out of his comfort zone. He's no longer with the person who is with him on a daily basis. These are the things that I told you to expect as he came through the door. But then, they're like, oh, you sure? I don't really know, not to be certain things that I, as the caregiver and someone who has done the extensive research behind, because I have skin in the game, like we're saying, would know. And because I have that intimate knowledge of my parent or the person that I'm taking care of, I could notice the little idiosyncrasies. I can see the nuances. I could see the differences in just their subtle interactions and their nonverbal communication. Whereas that physician may not be able to see that. In addition to that, like you said, they may be a specialist, but not necessarily in that. So yes, I understand the condition that this patient is coming in with, but from the lens of this also being an Alzheimer's patient or someone with this particular condition, they may not be able to see exactly what those symptoms are or how they would present in this particular case. So those are some of the things that I noticed, and those are the times when I would have had to, as a caregiver, step in and really, put my foot down and advocate for my parents.
Yeah. Okay, so we're sort of on one end of the conversation now in terms of you know, getting towards the end of life. Things are going to start to break down. You don't know what exactly is going to happen, but we can have an expectation that we need to prepare. Like you said, we have to have those conversations. We have to have those conversations with ourselves. And this brings me to one to step to the other end of the spectrum and talk about prevention. Ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, right? I know, Alexis, you were thinking about, okay, both my parents had Alzheimer's. How am I going to prepare as much as possible to give myself the biggest chance of preventing that? And I know, Dr. Parker, you would advise people, it's better to not get in this position from the very beginning. So Alexis, I'd like to know what your current thoughts around being the age that you are. I'm not going to ask, but I know I'm rapidly approaching 50, and hopefully that's only midlife. Uh, there are a bunch of things that I've learned, and knowing conceptually is not the same as doing. That's another set of the problem. But what are you currently thinking and doing about prevention and maybe even preaching to other people on the let's just not get there part of things?
Yeah, so for me currently, and you said not to, you won't ask my age, but I will tell you, I will be 40 this year.
Okay.
And when you think about midlife, like you said, it's not 50, it is now. For me, like statistically, we need to start now. And when we think about certain conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, those sorts of things, and we look at the preclinical, we are looking at maybe about 20 years earlier than when we actually get a diagnosis for when these things, start to happen. So what are we doing at those critical times to, kind of, I won't say ensure, but kind of just do whatever it is that you can to make sure that you're running at optimum for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And for me, those things are always going to be about diet and exercise. But as well, I think people don't realize the social aspect. The pandemic also did a number on our our aging population as well in terms of being isolated. People don't consider how much being in isolation it exacerbates all sorts of different things. So for me, just trying to remain in community, trying to, look at different ways to eat that are going to be, anti-inflammatory, that trying to reduce the stress level, all of those sorts of things are things that I'm actively doing right now. because, you know, I saw where it could head. It's scary as hell. So, you know, anything that I can do to try and hold on and not just have long life, but have it in a healthy way, like Dr. Parker said, not just be hanging in there, but to actually be a vibrant person, a vibrant 80-year-old, a vibrant 70-year-old. So those are some of the things that I'm trying to do now, just to be able to see that happen in the future.
Yeah.
From
Good,
my
doctor.
perspective,
What would you tell your patients?
I think that there are certain things there's a change in the zeitgeist, I believe, that was coming prior to the pandemic, but has certainly been accelerated since the pandemic. The general awareness of the public about the toxicity of the environment in general, in terms of firstly diet, that is now a popular understanding now that there are certain things you want to do to reduce inflammation. As even though it's my bread and butter, Dr. Alexis mentioned that, you know, even the general public is now aware about having an anti-inflammatory diet, exercising on a regular basis. These are the things that build up your body to sustain the blows that will come through time. In terms of arthritis, many of the risk factors, unfortunately, are what you call non-modifiable, meaning that, you know, age is the biggest one, quite frankly. And then as we get older, ironically, it becomes more of a female problem, even though it's very prevalent. Trauma and damage to your joints in the previous life, falling off the roof, for example, can set you up for arthritis later on down the line. And so I don't know that there's an anti-arthritis lifestyle, but what I would advocate is what people are generally doing in terms of taking better care of themselves, being more cautious about what they consume, being more active, you know, combining strength exercises along with the aerobic exercise. We're now understanding that the building muscle strength and maintaining muscle strength is as important as the aerobic component. Social connectiveness for the mental health, you know what I mean? Maintaining yourself, engaging yourself cognitively, you know, living as healthy a lifestyle as you can, I would say. With respect to the treatment of arthritis, what I would say is this comes into play with regenerative medicine in particular, because the body is really a healing machine. And if we get out of the body's way, the body can take care of a lot of the problems that we are presented with. And for example, 60-year-old patient, not every 60-year-old or 70-year-old patient is the same. When you accrue a number of chronic illnesses, that general level of health is going to determine how well the regenerative medicine is going to work in a given patient. So what I would say is to maintain your health, maximize your baseline health and strength, because you'll be able to use and leverage that when it comes to healing or treating a particular joint or a particular problem.
Yeah, I want to hammer home the strength aspect as well. I mean, it's amazing to me to sometimes see two 70-year-olds side by side, one who is strength trained and one who is just sort of continued a sedentary lifestyle, or just when they became 60, they became sedentary. 60, 65, they retired, watched the TV, and you know, there's a term sarcopenia for the losing of the muscle mass as you get older, and it's just so important from a internal body perspective, but also for preventing falls, which is a huge issue in the elderly, right? I remember my grandmother also had Alzheimer's, and then she had to have an emergency procedure done. Got her down here at PMH. the nurses unfortunately did not keep enough of an eye on her, and she fell out of the bed and broke her hip. In her 60s, not great, right? And I mean, you can imagine that only allowed things to progress more quickly. So you gotta you gotta make sure that you can do as much prevention as possible, and strength is one of those things. I know prior to, I would say, the last 5 years, all of the out there in the ether, in the zeitgeist, as you said, the idea was like, get your cardiovascular health straight. And that, I'm not saying don't do that, but you also, if you want to, in my view, if you want to age gracefully, you have to maintain your muscle mass. And I'm not a doctor. Nothing from any of us on here should be construed as medical advice. Medical advice is given to you by your personal physician or other healthcare providers, as Dr. Parker will back me up in saying. But there are things that you should look into as you age. One of those things is the fact that as we age, one of the problems that we have is we are absorbing good nutrients less effectively. And so we may need to supplement somewhat. That may be that older people need to eat a little more protein than they would usually eat because they just don't absorb it as well. It could mean that you need to look into a supplement like leucine, an essential amino acid, which is one of the primary signalers for, hey, you need to grow some muscle. So as you get up in age, you might need to reach for certain scientifically proven supplements. I want to be clear here. There's a lot of hand wavy stuff out there, but there are also there's also a bunch of good research on certain things that may really aid you in your health journey as you age. For instance, not a lot of us are getting enough omega-3 fatty acids. You could go out and buy a lot of salmon. That costs a lot of money. A lot of it is farmed. You get all these issues. You talk about the toxic environment, Dr. Parker. So maybe you need to take some fish oil or some krill oil. All these things need to be taken into consideration. I would be interested to know what our general vitamin D status is in the general population. We get a lot of sun here, but someone with less melanin in their body, like me, is going to make vitamin D faster than, say, my wife, right? So she may need to stay in the sun a little bit longer to get that vitamin D if she's not going to supplement. So there are those sorts of things, but the exercise, the strength, one of the things that I really wanted to add was sleep. Because what I've learned, especially over the last 10 years, is that sleep is just absolutely foundational. And when you're young, you believe you're invincible. Now, if I go to bed at 11 and I wake up at my regular time, it's a rough day. I don't know, are either of you putting much emphasis on sleep? Because I think that this is one of the biggest things that people can do to really improve their health overall and make it much, much easier to make better decisions throughout the day to build on. Like, am I going to get to the gym to do strength training? Am I going to eat the right thing instead of giving into this overly carbohydrate heavy, sugar laden meal that's just easy to get? More and more, I just believe that sleep is the absolute floor, and you have to get that right, or things are just going to be really rough in terms of aging and longevity. Give me your thoughts here. Am I way off the mark,
You're
or
absolutely
is
you
it
are
something that you
on the
are
mark. That is something
prioritizing?
that I am heavily prioritizing right now. Um, how easy or how difficult it is to do for me right now with 4 very young children and people who still get up throughout the night. It's a toss up, honestly, but that is something that I'm actively prioritizing. Um, I can't speak for Dr. Parker, but knowing that he is a physician and I can't say, what the caliber of his sleep is, it's like, I don't trust that it's very much better than mine. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that I have been more intentional about. Um, just for very many reasons, I'm not necessarily just aging, but yes, most definitely sleep is high on my priority list. Do I get it often enough or as often as I should? No, I will admit that I do not, but that is definitely very high priority. But right now, honestly, in terms of what my intentions are for dementia proofing my brain, that is actually at the top of my list.
Well, I would definitely say, and whereas I don't have an official medical recommendation per se,
Mhm.
I would definitely attest to personally from the fact that the older you get, the more important sleep is. And sleep itself is also very important. You should get good quality sleep when you can. That's what I would say there. The ability of the body to recover, the clarity and just the quality of the mental and physical performance during the day was largely contingent upon how much sleep you get, especially as you get up in age. Um, I would also speak to what you had spoken to before. You were talking about various supplementation, and I think that as a medical doctor, I'll weigh in simply because it's there, it's out there in the zeitgeist, and so the reality of it is the traditional allopathic medicine is going to have to make room for, and should make room for, other things that can be leveraged to improve health, so long as there's good data, good studies, good evidence to support the measures. And like everything else, um, like I had a discussion today with a patient of mine who is very well invested in vitamins and diet, and to the point of pursuing it as an academic pursuit. And we were talking about blood pressure. And so I said to her, we spoke, and the agreement was so long as we could agree that the measuring stick is going to be the blood pressure. And if it keeps the blood pressure objectively down and your blobs and everything don't deteriorate and clinically you don't have a problem, then I don't have a problem. But let's agree on a measuring stick that's
Yes.
objective and that keeps us both honest. You know what I mean? And what I tell them is, you can take your stuff as long as you don't take my stuff, as long as you don't stop taking my stuff, and then we can agree if everything is under control on how we step down one or the other, and then we keep a track of the objective measurement that we're trying to control, so that we're not, you're not taking something and thinking you're controlling something when it's not really controlled.
Yeah.
And so I think that those supplementation, good, sensible supplementation is going to be a reasonable consideration. I have nothing against that. So provided you have some data, or if you don't have any data and you want to try something, we'd agree that, okay, let's keep an eye on the vitals, keep an eye on the labs, and see how it makes you feel. And if it's not causing any problem and it's not mixing with anything, then fine. And with respect to vitamin D, which is an important supplement and is an important vitamin, unfortunately, there is a lot of low vitamin D. Vitamin D in general is low. When I check it for most patients, it tends to be very low until we bring it up. Mind you, I see the population I see is there's a certain slant to that population. So I'm not going to say that the general population is low in vitamin D, but I do come across a lot of patients with low vitamin D that needs to be supplemented.
Yeah.
Dr. Parker, how does the regular layperson then kind of block out the noise and cut through all the fluff in terms of vitamins and supplementation. And, you know, there's so many things on the market. So what is it that the average Joe like me would be looking for in our vitamins and supplementation?
Well, that's a good question. And where I would start with is, if you remember now, unfortunately, I mean, we have to keep our our bat signal on at all times, because the supplement industry would like to point the finger at the pharmaceutical industry and say all they are about is money, but they're not giving their supplements away. You know,
Yeah.
those supplements
They're pointing
they come in
fingers.
very attractive packages,
Yeah, ain't nothing for
and
free.
they come with a price tag. And so if you listen to them, you'll be taking 1,000 supplements a day, which is the very thing they say about the medication. So I would start my general health journey, and this is going to sound, like I'm, representing biased, but the truth of the matter is, what you need is, as an adult, you need a good physical. You know, you need to see a doctor. Even as a young person, you need to make sure you're not hypertensive, you're not diabetic, and nothing is going on. And if you have a particular concern or issue, then if it's speculative, let us say, you have a symptom or sign, that I would advise you to go and seek medical treatment for. If you think that you would like more energy, and this supplement provides you with energy, then I would start to read. Ultimately, most people are going to start with the internet. Then now, the internet is an echo chamber, and it's going to lead you down wherever road you particularly want to go. If you're negatively biased towards it, it'll take you there. If you're positively biased towards it, it will take you there. So you could look for research papers, articles, scientific articles about a particular component, and then look at the number of articles and who published those articles, because that's important as well. So you're not going to get away with doing no work. If you are content with the shiny packaging and the YouTube ad, then you're going to be susceptible, unfortunately, to a multiplicity of things. But the question you have to ask yourself is, before you go looking for supplements or health in a pill, whether that is a medicine or a supplement, what is the quality of your lifestyle? Are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you, getting some sunlight? Are you doing your best to live a healthy lifestyle? Because if you're a young person living a, relatively healthy lifestyle, you shouldn't need necessarily a ton of supplements. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you shouldn't take any, but and then as you get older, if you feel like you want to maximize this or that, then certainly, you go to your doctor, you could ask for your vitamin D to be checked. You may have to pay for it, you know. So there are certain things that I don't think you should treat nothing. I don't think you should treat zero, I don't think you should aim to supplement at that. And then you have no target and there'll be no end to it. You really should focus on a good diet, exercise, lifestyle, strength training, and then look at your age. As we get older, we're probably all in the middle age to older crowd. We're a little more sensitive to to our health, and a little more there on the okay, what can I consider? What runs in your family? What is your particular issue? So I mean, I don't really have a great answer for you, because the truth is there's so much stuff out there. But I would say look at your own personal health profile and your own personal priorities. And then also have a good idea of what your general textbook health is.
Yeah, baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I want to reinforce that with 3 quick points. The first being that if you described the effects of exercise as a pill in various contexts in health, it would just be America, right? Multi-billion-dollar industries if you could just take exercise in a pill. So yeah, you didn't say it in this context, but you did say you got to do the work. It's going to be some work. It's not going to be for free. So like foundationally, sleep, exercise, both cardiovascular and strength training, keep your stress low, like the basics. And so that would give me my second point in terms of the way that I like to look at it is I'm not trying to supplement, like Dr. Parker said, for something that has no target. I'm not trying to treat nothing, right? Do I have some sort of deficiency that I need to make up for? Is there some reason that my diet doesn't have what I need in it? Is there some reason I can't eat a reasonable diet? You know, some people are unfortunately either because they have lack of knowledge or they have lack of funds, find themselves in a position, and now it's reasonable for you to supplement certain things, right? What those things are, you'll have to talk, do your own research and talk to your doctor, etc. So I would say where you need to advocate for yourself most of all is understanding what does healthy look like? What are the labs that I do need to know about? Do I need to know about my vitamin D? Do I need to know is total cholesterol? I'm just giving examples right now. Is total cholesterol enough of a marker, or am I a person who thinks I need to know my HDL, triglycerides, and LDL, and certain ratios, etc. Right? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying you need to figure out what the basics of what healthy looks like, and then from there you can say, okay, I'm definitely low in vitamin D. The doctor gave me looked at my labs, came back, I was low. I'm gonna go on vitamins, right?
Mhm.
The last thing though is I saw a very interesting point between two doctors a few months ago, in which the evidence is kind of, I don't want to misspeak on this because it's very important to not get it wrong. We need very solid based evidence to make our decisions on, and like was stated, they ain't selling the vitamins for free. The pharmaceuticals aren't for free. Everybody has their angle. And so we want to have as much of an evidence-based approach as possible, but still, I'll give you a terrible example. In Alzheimer's research, there is some very serious corruption. So we have to have our eyes open, our ears up, like Dr. Parker said, all the time. But at some point, you can't be first principles and like essentially go to medical school on your own time and figure everything out for yourself. So you need to have that alliance with a good medical practitioner.
Mhm.
And I would say you would also need to find trusted sources of information. For me personally, that has been finding primarily medical doctors, but some biochemists, et cetera, who are very qualified, who actually look at the research papers and break them down for you, right? So it's a sort of middle ground where I don't have to read every research paper that's out there. I can see what they say the flaws are in a given paper, and I can say, okay, this is a considered opinion. I see the reasoning. I can look at the paper in that context if I want, but I don't have to be a whole PhD or MD to go through all of that myself. So that's how I personally deal with a serious overload of information. The other thing though is about this evidence, right? Because of the way evidence works, especially in medical studies, you have to take out confounding factors. But personalized medicine is the antithesis of that. It has to be. And this is because
there's an N of one.
Every N of one, exactly, is going to be different. So you could be the person, like if a study comes out and the basic thing is a bell curve, let's say, so most people are right in here. But when you go to the doctor, you could be the person over here. So you have to we have to understand these things, and this is generally true, and this applies in this context, etc. But when we're talking one-on-one, you know, you're unique and you don't know until you have spoken to a really good doctor and done certain tests, etc. Then assessed, let's say, right? You don't know where you fall in that. And so I think that the advocacy for yourself in being able to maintain health and age well is going to be one, understand what healthy looks like, where you're departing from that, get a set of solid, trusted resources. Number one being your primary care physician, but find people that you can trust. I Online is everything these days. Like in the old days, they would say, I would have to qualify and say, find someone online. That's all that there is right now anymore. And then be able to have those conversations and not be brushed aside, so that you're comfortable that you are not one of these people who are laying outside of the norm for a given thing, you know, because a medicine can have side effects, a supplement can have side effects, a food could have side effects, right? The body is this weirdly incredible thing. But for me, this is the balance point where you understand what healthy looks like. Are you departing from it? And you can have these conversations with your doctor without having to go to medical school yourself all over again. I don't know if you guys think that's reasonable. That's been my approach.
Well, that's how doctors work with one another. I mean, you can't be a specialist of everything, or else you'll get nowhere, you know? So at the end of the day, you're quite right. There is the if there's no trust, if you can't find a network of trust, then unfortunately we're not going to get much done. So I agree with you. Your approach sounds quite reasonable. I always tell my patients that they should always have a general practitioner or a primary care physician who is the doctor who knows everything. Doesn't necessarily do everything, but he has an idea of what's going on. Okay, you have a problem with this, eye doctor, heart doctor. Oh, you want to talk about this supplement? Okay, let's review the papers together, and I'll tell you what I see or what do I think of. That kind of thing, that kind of alliance. It's always going to be a therapeutic alliance, and then of course, depending on your ability and your interest, you can research on your own. But again, the rabbit holes exist if you go down them. And then you're correct, medical evidence can be corrupted, unfortunately. And the way that the way that evidence is compiled can also be very expensive, which can which can work against inexpensive, long-established remedies, because nobody will want to do the studies on them because there's no money in it. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to. You're not going to be able to get away from complexity. So you're going to have to use a bit of common sense and then ally with other people with common sense. And the more people with common sense involved in the decision, the better it tends to be.
Yeah. Speaking about specialization, I was wondering if you could speak to some of the regenerative stuff that you have adopted. And even if there are very interesting things that you see coming down the pipe that you haven't used yourself, but you're very interested in, if you could speak to what's been working and what's exciting in regenerative medicine.
Okay. Well, so what I will do with that is I will start with my premise, the fact that the body is a healing machine. And medicine, whether it is rheumatology, cardiology, or even oncology, the highest, even with the vaccines, the medicine is moving now toward trying to mimic solving a problem the way the body solves a problem, or trying to get the body to solve the problem and coax the body to solve the problem or energize it to do that. Specifically, we have cells in our body called platelets. They're really it's a stretch to call it a cell, but for the purposes of this discussion, I would call it a cell. The platelets are what circulate in the blood, and they help with forming clotting, and they predominate or are activated whenever there's injury. And so we've now learned that these platelets can be harvested from the blood, just from a simple blood draw, concentrated and injected into areas where they can reduce inflammation, reduce pain, promote healing, and improve mobility and quality of life. The joints, tendons, and ligaments and bones of the body are hard and tough and mechanically strong. And so they tend not to have good circulation like other areas of the body, like the liver or the skin. These areas can regenerate themselves very easily, largely because they have a good circulation. So in the joint in particular, which is made up of cartilage, tendons, ligaments, and bone, these sturdy and hard, mechanically strong tissues are durable and they're hard to hurt, but when they hurt, they don't heal well. And so we are able to inject the platelet into the joint that will reduce pain and allow, in many cases, full use of the joint for a certain period of time. A step above the platelet is what we would call the mesenchymal stem cell, meaning that these are cells that are in our body as adults in particularly high concentrations in the fat and the bone marrow. And these cells mediate healing, tissue reconstruction, tissue regeneration, and they also reduce inflammation. And so we can harvest fat through a micro liposuction, a small liposuction, process it in a centrifuge and inject it into various areas of the body, be it joints, ligaments, or tendons, or aspirate the bone marrow and inject it in the same way. And we can use that to promote healing, pain relief, and regeneration of tissues in some cases. Now, that is what you call autologous stem cell treatment, meaning it comes from your own body back to your own body. That is a very safe procedure because basically there's no risk of rejection and there's no additional risk of infection simply because outside of the actual process itself, it's all your material. There's a lot of research now behind that, especially for arthritis of the knee and for tendonitis, tendinopathies, rotator cuff, hip pain, ankle pain. So that ship has left. That is approaching mainstream. It is so established, well established now that it is on its way to the mainstream. For example, that is the treatment that allowed Nadal to extend his career. You know, the athletes were the ones to really start using it, but now they're headed. It's come down to the average person. So you, me, Grammy can get it. Beyond that treatment now would be what you call the stem cells that people have heard about, where the stem cells from the birth tissue of healthy consenting mothers who had C-sections is then harvested, and then those cells are grown, and then you can receive those cells, or you can have your cells harvested from your fat or your bone marrow, and a company will take those cells, grow them, and then after they reach a certain number, they can be given to you. And in terms of business, entrepreneurial ventures, that's a big business proposition to the extent that they have outposts. That's not legal in America, so there are a lot of companies that are doing these things around the world, and I believe they do some here as well, because we have a Regenerative Medicine Act that facilitates that activity. So in terms of stem cells as a field of medicine, I think it's going to have a very wide purview. Certainly, from my perspective, it has revolutionized my practice. It has changed the lives of many patients, not just old patients, young patients. I've treated post-operative patients who still have pain, or young patients who don't want to have surgery. So it's not just for the old, it's for the young as well. So stem cell medicine and that type of medicine is here, and it provides alternatives to surgeries. And I don't think we've seen the upside. We've seen the close to the limit of the upside as yet.
Wow. I like you said, the one that you hear about is the one where they harvest and grow them and put them back into your body once they reach a certain number. I did not realize that we had the platelet harvesting. We could use a centrifuge and essentially get them back in that quickly.
Yeah.
Even though you say that's the one that's more mainstream, it's easier. But I hadn't heard about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's called platelet-rich plasma, or PRP. And
Okay.
it essentially is an in-office procedure. I take the blood, and using the specialized kit, I just harvest it, I take the blood, prepare it in the centrifuge. Takes me about 30 minutes. And then under ultrasound guidance, I put the platelets back wherever they need to go, whether it's your knee, whether it's your hip, whether it's your back, whether it's your ankle, tendon, wherever it needs to go. And then over a 1 to 3 month period, the healing and the pain relief occurs. And so for patients with arthritis, you're talking about 6 months to 2 years of pain relief, significant pain relief, if not being pain free. And tendinopathies, those can heal completely. So that's an in-office procedure. It's very simple and straightforward, and we've done, I mean, countless procedures with patients with very good results. ACL I've treated, meniscus, rotator cuff tendon, osteoarthritis, you name it. Patients anywhere from their teens to their 80s.
That's excellent news. I didn't expect to learn about something that's so accessible.
Well, yeah,
Let me ask you a question about something slightly more advanced. So some of the audience may be familiar with CRISPR, gene editing in general. Do you see any of that on the horizon? And what do you think about it in general?
Well, the capacity to treat and to modify the DNA and gene therapy essentially is here. It is my understanding that they recently cured a patient of sickle cell using the CRISPR technology, if I'm not mistaken. And so that the rollout of that type of technology is going to be, I think that the question is going to become cost, and how do you bring that to the mainstream in a way that is palatable to the population, because people get, when you start talking about manipulating the genes, you get a little bit of people get nervous. But I think ultimately it's going to land, and you're talking about really implementation. Unfortunately at this point it's experimental. At this point it's going to be high end, high cost, and so maybe something that is engaged on a national basis. We have a registry for where it's proven to give benefit, then you may end up going through either a government program or something like that. Otherwise, I mean, that type of thing will probably wipe out your insurance policy if you if you were able to get it, even with insurance. But
Well,
in theory, it's here, and I think it's a good thing.
so I'll give you an anecdote, and then I want to throw a related question to both of you. And then after that, Trav, I want to get a check on time, because time flies when you're having great conversation. And I'm considering this and certainly for me, it's a great conversation listening to both of you.
Agreed.
But the anecdote is on YouTube, right? One of the joys of the internet is just being able to see all of these brilliant people share their work. And there are some biochemists out there. This guy actually did his own gene therapy and cured himself of lactose intolerance for about 6 months. But it really lasted a year, but the most benefit was within 6 months. So certain, and I think this was one of the easier therapies to make, obviously, right? Because he did it essentially in his advanced garage. But it brings hope for the lowering of costs and the complexity not being so high that you need, multi-million-dollar facilities just to get anything done. With that said, I want to say to Alexis, you may or may not be aware of the increased risk that people who carry the I believe it's the ApoE4 variant of the gene, and if you carry 2 copies of this, you're in much higher risk of Alzheimer's, right? So one, I want to know, like, were you aware of that? Second, if you were, do you know your status? And then third, to include Dr. Parker, do you think that we should have something akin to a national database or a set of guidelines that if you reach a certain age, there's the protocols in place, you hit 40 or 50, you should have a colonoscopy, check for cancer of this type at this age, et cetera. Should we be looking on a national scale at identifying certain ones of these markets where it's very clear that they will increase your risk of some of these devastating conditions? So take it away, Alexis.
Yes, Matthew, I am aware of it. My status, no, I do not know, but I move and I operate as though that is definitely what I have. So
Wise. Yeah.
We know that prevention is better than having to figure out a cure. So everything that I'm doing is moving towards trying to dementia-proof my brain as much as I can, given knowing what my increased risks are. And increased risk for me would be those 2 things, but also I'm a 39-year-old Black woman. I am in perimenopause. I also live with ADHD. So when you talk about things that affect your cognition and having brain fog and all of the different stressors and inflammation and all of these different things, yeah, it's basically a cluster storm for me. So everything that I do is from the idea that I am working towards dementia proofing my brain, and in that, along the way, it would be helpful with all of the other disorders and every other condition that may be happening with me as well. So yes, I definitely am aware of it. I don't know my own status, but I operate as though this is the case, right? Because I just feel as though it's much easier to get ahead of things in that way. In terms of what you spoke about for Dr. Parker, doing certain things on a national scale, yeah, so definitely in terms of we've been mandated to put in place a national dementia plan. So this is something that has been mandated by the WHO, I think it was the Global Action Plan on Dementia. So this is something that would have been initiated from 2017, and countries, have been committed to developing national policies and strategies or some sort of plans by year 2025, which we're in now. But of course, they've extended it. I think it's been extended to 2031 or something along those lines, with check-ins that have to come into place again around 2027, I believe. So under that national dementia plan are the policies and procedures and the way of doing things on a national level to ensure that we are doing these things on time, getting these certain checks by age 40, age 50, whatever the case may be, to ensure certain things are in place in terms of caregiver support and advocacy and all of these different things as well. So it is something that should be in the works. I am not sure where it is on on the totem pole for government, but it has been mandated to be done. It is something that the Bahamas Alzheimer's Association, that's one of the major priorities for us right now, being able to work along with the government to kind of, I guess, figure out what are some of the things that are important in our Bahamian community around not just the lens of Alzheimer's or dementia, but in terms of older persons in general. And trying to revisit certain things with I think it's the Older Persons Act. So those sorts of things are, supposed to be in the pipeline in terms of what it is that should be being done on a national level. So yes, I guess, I don't know if Dr. Parker is still there, but I guess he can speak to anything else.
Okay. We may have lost Dr. Parker. Okay, I think this is actually also a good time though. Travis, should we go to Q&A?
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely do Q&A. Well, I would like to start with a particular question. I don't know if, I guess Mr. Parker isn't here, but I'm curious to find out, like, what are things that we could innovate on today, given these challenges that we're talking about? I know, Matt, when we had our fireside chat a few days ago, we're just talking about like low hanging fruit for things that could happen like right now. I'm just curious in terms of, given the landscape, what are things that we could do to get better information for individuals? Are there particular products and services that might exist that probably just doesn't have a lot of just visibility? I'm curious to find out what we could do, probably given these challenges, that we could implement today, in 6 months, a year, 5 years from now, especially for us as we give this project, that we could kind of expose entrepreneurs to, in order to get them to start thinking about and potentially building ideas around trying to solve some of these challenges.
Yeah, well, I want to solicit Alexis' feedback here, but just for the audience to understand the broader context of our fireside that we had a few days ago, we touched on how businesses that help with these sorts of things are so difficult, partially because although prevention is much better than cure, people are much less motivated to change things if they don't have a pressing problem. And so unfortunately, a lot of times to get people what they need, you have to address what they want. And usually what they want is, I have XYZ pain, and now I have to say, okay, we can address this pain, but we need to really talk about what the root causes of this pain was to begin with. And in the context of longevity, that is the basics of sleep, exercise, strength training, stress management. And one of the things I actually didn't bring up, which is crucial to health in general and longevity, is light, the sun. The sun has at least 4 or 5 different effects that I can list off right now. But the sun is free. So getting back to the whole business argument again, like it's not, there's not a lot of low-hanging fruit besides, in my mind, information where you share a lot of the fundamental information, and the implementation of that may be a really good business model for someone, if we're talking about quote unquote low-hanging fruit, right? Obviously, regenerative medicine, some of the more advanced things to actually fix your joints, your dementia care, those sorts of things, I don't consider low-hanging fruit. But if we're talking about low-hanging fruit, it's actually cutting through the noise and providing good information that people can trust, that they can act on, and if they need help to actually implement that, having a business that's modeled around that. But what are your thoughts, Alexis? Where have you had difficulties, and where do you think services may be helpful in dementia in particular, but just longevity and maintaining a good health span in general?
Right. So in dementia in particular, I would say so definitely in terms of number one, if we were looking at it, sorry, from an entrepreneur aspect, not even so much the patient themselves, but caregiver support. You know, there's not necessarily, we do not have any sort of respite care facilities here for caregivers. You know, we do have a few old folks homes, those sorts of things. But in terms of care for the caregiver, in terms of some sort of actual support for the caregiver themselves, a place where they can come together and be able to, you know, just be amongst like-minded persons who are going through the same thing as them. There's no respite care. There's no real system in place for respite care. Apart from that, there is, I want to say, things like practical home solutions. So yet again, we do have home care services, but in terms of maybe, you know, people being able to come in and possibly doing something like, let's say, a home starter kit, being able to, you know, put certain things in place, like, you know, the modifications that we would need in a home with a person living with Alzheimer's or any form of mental capacity being increased, and mental incapacitation, sorry. I would definitely say there is the market for that, memory-friendly modifications in homes. More so on the tech side, you know, there are companies, and I'm seeing them coming around more often, like security companies and whatnot, offering, you know, trackers and fall detectors and all of these sorts of things. But still, that it's still definitely a market for it. We also, when we look at, when we look at in terms of the nutrition aspect, you know, there are meal services all around the place. There are none that I know of that are specifically for persons with aging issues, those sorts of things. Any sort of nutrition geared specifically towards that. If there are persons who provide, you know, meal services that are specifically, let's say, around the mind diet or something along those lines, then, you know, those things are very helpful. A caregiver, you know, one of the hardest things for me was trying to figure out, okay, what are they going to eat every day that is going to be something that they will eat, but also that is going to is going to be able to help them and myself as a caregiver. So, you know, those sorts of things. There are countless things that I would consider low-hanging fruit, I would say. But those are just a few of the things.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a good starter as well too. So yeah, I guess we'll open it up to if anybody else has any questions, or even like, you know, stories that they would like to share, or like things that they want to touch on for this. You are a part of it. We want to hear your voice. So please feel free. If you have any questions, you could drop it in the chat. Oh
While
yeah, go
we're
ahead,
waiting
Matt.
for that, Travis,
Yeah.
I do want to mention something. It's that I think we have everyone here's email addresses because of the registration process. Is that correct, Travis?
We should definitely, unless somebody hacked and kind of snuck in,
Yeah,
but we
okay.
should have.
All right. If If we don't, I would encourage you to just shoot us your email, just if you didn't use it to sign up. Just because we're gonna send out a sort of cheat sheet, a simple guide to what are the basics. So I spoke earlier about knowing what the frame of like what is actually healthy, but not having information overload either. So we are going to be sending out a very simple set of information to say, okay, listen, you should be getting X amount of steps in. You should be getting X amount of sleep. Here are the things that are going to optimize your sleep. You know, you should be in as cool a room as possible. You shouldn't have on any light in the room, et cetera, et cetera. So this is information that is out there, general, well vetted, but we're going to pull it all into one place so that you can have an easy reference. So at least you don't have to be worrying, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Which supplements have evidence behind it? What is snake oil? You know, because you want to also know what are common things that you shouldn't be wasting your money. So we are going to shoot that out for people. That's not something we said in our promotions. That's just a helpful thing that we want to do as part of this process. So with that, if there are any other questions from the audience that we can facilitate. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost Dr. Parker.
Yeah, he was trying to get back in, but I'm not sure if there was a waiting room or anything.
Oh, there he is, admitted. Great. Yeah, tech is not, my job is tech, and it just seems the tech gets worse every year. I don't. I mean, if there are no questions, we must have done an awesome job here.
Or if you don't figure out what a question is right now, again, with that email, feel free to reach out to us as well too. Like our general email is contact@arrowlink, ARROWLYNK.com. I'll put it in the chat as well too, so you could grab it. And then also you could also message us at our project website, which is silvercarib.com. So if nobody has any questions here, yeah.
I want to note that that's Carib with an E on the end.
Yeah. And I put that in the chat as well too.
Okay, great.
But if no other questions, I guess we could wrap it up if anybody didn't want to chime in.
All right, well, I would hand it over to Alexis and Dr. Parker if there's any parting words that you want to give.
I mean, sorry for the intermission. I had some technical difficulties with it. But do your best to stay healthy. I think a lot of things that Matthew and Alexis mentioned, in particular about the diet and the weight training and the cardiovascular fitness. At the end of the day, you can't predict the future, and you don't know what storms lay ahead. But what is largely going to determine the outcome or the quality of the outcome is the strength and the health that you're in when trouble arises. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And the largest thing you can say is like Matthew said, exercise is like medicine and a pill. And diet, the closer you get to a whole food, healthy diet, the better off you will be.
Good evening. My name is Lindiana Raming. I log in late. I was wondering if the recording, would I be able to access it so I could get it from the beginning?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, yes. So everybody who signed up, we'll send you a email back with a recording to the video, which will probably be on YouTube. We'll definitely send that out for you as well.
Well, thank you very much. I am a nursing officer at Geriatric Hospital, and I'm very interested in gerontology. Anything maintaining to it. So I'm happy to, someone sent me this link late, and so I just joined it. Thank you.
Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you being here. Yeah.
And two, I'm the president of the Bahamas Diabetic Association, so hopefully we can do something together next
Please,
month.
Please. Yes,
please, please. You're
that
looking
is
for
such,
partners. You're looking for partners.
Yes. So, you know,
I feel that
next,
that is such an actionable area for Bahamian health.
Yep.
yes. And
Yeah, we would love to collaborate any way possible.
so, you know, there's a link between diabetes and hypoglycemia and all that and Alzheimer's. So
Yes,
Right.
let's do
Diabetes
something.
type 3.
yes,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Hope you have well soon.
Yeah,
World
thank you.
Diabetes Day, November 14th. We are having a free symposium at St. Gregory Anglican Church. That's our home base.
Okay.
Awesome. And yeah, feel free to send, if we don't remember to reach out to you for that, feel free to send us an email with that so we could share it in our networks as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with
Thank
that
you.
being said, I'll just drop in a few more just shameless plugs. Uh, continue to follow our project. We probably have one more launch event for this project just as we kick off going into our second year, if you will. Technically, we use this year to start off and to get the ball rolling, but we'll also be opening up a call for individuals to apply to our accelerator, which is just a 10-week business development around those challenges within the space. If you are an existing business, great, and you just want to explore that vertical, awesome. We'll also be looking for entrepreneurs that might be wanting to explore a potential solution from scratch as well too. And we'll have a few cycle of those, but our first cycle will be at the beginning of next year as well too. And then we'll send that email out just as a notification for everybody now that we have an individual contacts as well too. So if yourself or if you know somebody who would like to explore the space, even if it's just a starting entrepreneur has been in the space for a while, we invite you to be a part of that as well too. That's it for
I
me,
think
Matt. Yeah.
there's just one more thing that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I know you had asked Dr. Parker, what is exciting to him about the future of, aging and the technology in that regard. And I think for me, from the standpoint of a caregiver, I think what excites me the most is the possibility of reframing aging in our culture. Like Travis started out saying, people are living longer, but that only matters if they could live better. And I want to see the Bahamas embrace both medical innovation and family-centered planning. I think that's very important so that seniors are able to age in place as much as possible, so that caregivers are supported and people's legacies are preserved. To me, the future of aging is about shifting, I think, from crisis response to proactive preparation. I think that is of the utmost importance.
I think that's a very good point. Because at the end of the day, one day, if you live long enough, it could be you.
Most definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Matt, I'll give it back to you to close it out. We're still here.
I don't know if Matt is still
Yeah,
here.
he might have dropped out.
Yeah.
With that, then I'll close out. Again, I'd like to thank you all for this great opportunity. Again, this might not be the most like on top of zeitgeist thing that we could possibly touch on, but we notice, especially through our exploration of this space and our commitment to explore this space over the next few years, we're learning more and more and more is important, right? So this touches everybody. This touches if you are within that demographic, or if you have parents or other loved ones that are in that age range as well too. This touches you as well too. This touches everybody and in different ways. So we invite you to continue to journey with us as we continue to figure out how we can innovate in this space and to not only cultivate it for a better future for us in the Bahamas, but then also share that within the region with our partners also trying to solve the challenge as well too. So with that being said, thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. We don't take it lightly, and we look forward to working with you and to continue to explore the space together. And if you have somebody that could benefit from this information, when we do share the links, please share it to them as well too, and we'll get them in the loop and get them notified about upcoming events as well too. Like we said, our silver forums, we usually do a different theme every time we do a forum. We haven't confirmed what our next silver forum is as well too, but we want to touch on different things within the space as well. So thank you all for that time. And then Matthew's back. I don't know if you wanted to say any final words with that, but basically close it out, brother. We're good to go. This was a great event, and thank you, Matthew, for hosting this as well too, and super shout out to Sean as well too, from behind the scenes working on the project as well.
Yeah, I just want to see if Alexis has any words, and other than that, I just want to thank Dr. Parker and Alexis for being here, and thank everyone who has come and listened to the conversation.
Thank you so much. I think while you were off for 2 seconds, I was able to share my my parting words. But
Okay, great.
I'll just reiterate, yeah, you know, I was excited about what the future of aging and longevity can look like in this country as well, in terms of basically, the marriage between medical innovation and family-centered planning. So that was the last thing that I touched on, basically.
Okay. Well, perfect. I mean, I had a great time. Thank you guys so much for being here. And hopefully this conversation has been very useful to, well, everyone who's here, and will be useful. This is going to be up on YouTube. So with that, I would say good night.
Thank you. Good night again. Appreciate
Okay,
y'all.
thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right.